Dealer lots right now are drowning in unsold cars. We're talking thousands of brand new 2026 models sitting there, collecting dust, while dealers bleed money every single day they don't sell. And the crazy part? Some of these have been sitting for well over a year. Today, we're breaking down the 8 cars nobody is buying in 2026, using real market day supply data from CarEdge. The numbers are shocking. We're counting down from 8 to 1, and that number 1 spot is a complete disaster. Let's get into it. Kicking things off at number 8, we have the Mazda CX-90, sitting at around 241 days of market day supply, according to recent CarEdge data, with over 16,000 units on dealer lots at an average price of $48,000. This one is worth paying attention to because Mazda doesn't usually end up on lists like this. Their reliability reputation is strong. Their interiors punch above their price point, and enthusiasts genuinely respect the brand. The CX-90 was supposed to be their move-up market, a 3-row family SUV with Mazda refinement and a hybrid drivetrain. On paper, it made sense. The issue is that first-year ownership reports have been mixed enough to make cautious buyers hesitate. Owners have described the 8-speed transmission as jerky and hesitant in the lower gears, which is particularly noticeable in stop-and-go traffic, exactly where a family SUV spends most of its time. There have also been reports of radiator issues and hybrid battery concerns appearing earlier in ownership than anyone would expect from a near $50,000 vehicle. Consumer Reports currently gives the CX-90 a predicted reliability score of 22 out of 100, compared to 73 for the Toyota Grand Highlander. That's a gap that family SUV buyers take seriously. To Mazda's credit, they've been pushing updates, and later production units appear to show improvement. But first impressions in this segment are hard to undo. When a buyer is choosing between a question mark and a proven nameplate at a similar price, they tend to choose certainty. Dealers not budging on pricing for a slow-moving vehicle aren't helping the situation either. At number 7, the Ford F-150 Lightning, with around 250 days of supply and nearly 4,000 units on lots, at an average price of $67,600. Let's be clear about something first. The Lightning is genuinely impressive in many ways. Performance is strong, the frunk is genuinely useful, and owners who primarily drive locally tend to love it. This isn't a bad truck. The problem is that the buyer who loves the Lightning is a fundamentally different person from the buyer who traditionally buys an F-150. The mainstream truck buyer hauls things, tows things, and often works in areas where a charging station isn't around the corner. Hook up a heavy trailer and range reportedly drops by more than 50%. That's not a software fix. That's physics. And for a buyer who needs reliable range for work, that's a deal breaker. Then there's the price. At nearly $68,000 average, you're paying significantly more than a comparable gas F-150 or hybrid power boost. Projected fuel savings over 5 years don't bridge that gap for most buyers, and they've done the math. Ford underestimated just how practically minded the core truck market is. According to recent CarEdge data, inventory has built to around 250 days of supply, which suggests the early adopter wave has passed, and mainstream demand hasn't followed at the current price point. Number 6 is the one that surprises people. The Mazda MX-5 Miata, at around 315 days of supply with over 2,100 units on lots at an average price of $36,000. To be absolutely clear, the Miata is still one of the best driver's cars available at any price. The handling is exceptional, the experience is unique, and nothing else on the market delivers that combination of balance and feedback for the money. This isn't a quality problem. It's a pricing problem, and the Miata community spotted it immediately. For 2026, the base MSRP crossed $30,000 for the first time, with top trims pushing into the low 40,000s. The enthusiasts who know this car best have a simple alternative. A clean, used ND Miata, at roughly half the price, delivers the same driving experience. The car hasn't changed enough mechanically to justify a significant premium for new overused. On the other end, buyers who aren't already converted Miata fans aren't naturally drawn to spending $36,000 on a 2-seater with minimal storage and no rear seat when practical alternatives exist at that price. The slow lot movement here isn't really about nobody wanting the Miata. It's about a price-sensitive enthusiast audience that has found better value in the used market and a broader audience that was never quite the target anyway. Mazda may need to revisit where this one sits. Number 5 is the Buick Envision, at around 287 days of supply, with over 11,000 units on lots, at an average price of $41,000. The Envision has a positioning problem that no amount of discounting fully solves. At $41,000, you're in territory where entry-level Lexus becomes a realistic alternative. And Lexus brings decades of reliability data and brand prestige that Buick is still working to build. On the value side of the equation, the Mazda CX-90 delivers strong driving quality and a genuinely premium interior for less money. The Envision sits between those two options without a clear advantage over either. What makes it harder is the ownership experience hasn't been uniformly smooth. Some owners report no issues at all and find it a comfortable, quiet daily driver. Others have flagged electrical inconsistencies, software glitches following over-the-air updates, and quality control that feels uneven between units. That kind of lottery mentality, where your experience depends heavily on the specific vehicle you got, is particularly damaging at a near-luxury price point, where buyers expect consistency as a baseline. Buick's rebranding push toward younger buyers is genuine, but it's a slow process. At $41,000, with mixed owner sentiment floating around online, the Envision hasn't yet earned the automatic consideration it needs to move inventory at this pace. At number 4, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, with around 350 days of supply and over 10,700 units at an average price of $47,000. The Mach-E had genuine momentum for a while. It drove well. The Mustang branding generated attention, and the federal tax credit helped make the price digestible. Then the credit expired in October 2025, and the effective price jumped significantly overnight. Sales lost major momentum heading into early 2026, and Ford compounded the problem by reportedly adjusting the feature set for 2026 while holding pricing flat. That's a difficult combination to sell through. Without the tax credit doing part of the heavy lifting, direct comparisons become unavoidable. The Model Y carries a stronger supercharger network, a more established software ecosystem, and historically better resale value. The Mach-E competes on driving feel and interior design, which are genuine strengths, but at $47,000 out of pocket, many buyers are concluding that the Tesla ecosystem offers a more complete package. According to recent CarEdge data, 350 days of supply reflects a significant inventory buildup. Ford will likely need to either adjust pricing, reintroduce incentives, or both to change that trajectory in the near term. Number 3, and this one is a real case study in brand identity risk. The 2026 Dodge Charger, sitting at around 406 days of supply, according to recent market data, with over 5,700 units at an average price of $56,600. Dodge spent a decade building something genuinely valuable, a loyal enthusiast community centered around the V8 Hemi, the sound, the character, the muscle car identity that attracted buyers who cared deeply about what was under the hood. When Dodge replaced the Hemi with a twin-turbo inline-6 Hurricane engine and introduced an all-electric Daytona variant, a significant portion of that community stepped back. Early owner reports on the Hurricane have included electrical concerns and some accounts of substantial mechanical work needed at relatively low mileage. These are not universal experiences, and it's still early days for this powertrain. But in a segment built on emotional loyalty, early negative word of mouth carries outsized weight. The pricing shift amplified everything. The old base Charger started around $32,000. The new entry-level six-pack starts over $50,000. The buyers who built the Charger's reputation over the years didn't budget for that jump, and many haven't made it. At $56,000 to $70,000 plus for higher trims, buyers start cross-shopping used Corvettes, Porsches, and BMW, a comparison that's difficult for Dodge to win on brand prestige alone. Stellantis has pushed significant incentives into the market, with limited results so far. Number 2 is the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, at around 463 days of supply. Over 4,500 units on lots at an average price of $85,000, with some configurations crossing $110,000. Stellantis made an ambitious call here, taking Jeep directly into Cadillac Escalade and Lincoln Navigator territory at near six-figure prices. The vision was clear. The execution has created real problems. Some owners have reported concerning early mechanical issues with the Hurricane twin-turbo engine, including overheating events, turbo-related leaks, and, in isolated cases, significant failures at low mileage. To be clear, these aren't universally shared experiences, and many Grand Wagoneer owners haven't encountered these problems. But in the ultra-premium SUV segment, even a pattern of isolated reports is enough to shift buyer behavior, because the people spending $85,000 to $110,000 on an SUV have the resources to choose something else. And they do. Build quality feedback has also been mixed, with some owners describing interior materials and fit and finish that feel inconsistent with the price. Industry depreciation data suggests the Grand Wagoneer loses around 55% of its value in the first 3 years, which is a steep curve for a near six-figure purchase. Buyers in this segment research thoroughly before committing, and that combination of reliability, uncertainty, and aggressive depreciation is pushing many of them toward Escalades and Navigators instead. And the #1 slowest selling vehicle in America right now, by a significant margin, is the 2026 Volkswagen ID.4. According to the most recent CarEdge data, it's sitting at around 716 days of market day supply at an average transaction price of $48,500. Keep in mind these numbers shift monthly. But even accounting for fluctuation, this figure represents one of the most severe inventory imbalances in the current American car market. At the current sales pace, existing inventory could theoretically stretch well into 2028 if production continued unchecked. That is an extraordinary situation for what was supposed to be a mainstream electric crossover. Two significant problems developed at roughly the same time. First, the federal EV tax credit expired, and the ID.4 felt it acutely. Volkswagen responded by discontinuing the most affordable entry-level trim, and the 2026 Pro now starts around $46,000. That puts it in direct competition with the Tesla Model Y and Hyundai Ioniq 5, both of which are currently being aggressively discounted and carry stronger brand momentum in the EV space. Second, a persistent reliability concern has damaged the brand's reputation with EV buyers. Owners have widely reported an issue with the 12-volt battery system. Despite the ID.4 carrying a large main battery, basic vehicle functions rely on a conventional 12-volt battery. According to owner accounts, this 12-volt battery sometimes isn't adequately recharged from the main pack, leaving drivers with a vehicle that reads 80% charge but won't start or unlock. For a $50,000 vehicle, that kind of failure is very difficult to recover from in terms of word of mouth. Then, Volkswagen made a decision that frustrated early buyers significantly. They declared software version 3.x end of life for pre-2024 models, meaning owners of 2023 ID.4s are permanently on an outdated software branch because the hardware can't support the newer version. Online owner sentiment has become increasingly negative as a result, with many frustrated buyers vocal across forums and owner communities. Used 2023 ID.4s are reportedly selling well below expectations in some markets because buyers factor in the software situation. At 716 days of supply, the data reflects a serious mismatch between production and demand that Volkswagen will need sustained effort to correct. So there you have it. 8 cars sitting on dealer lots with no easy answers in sight. And the pattern running through all of them is consistent. Pricing that's drifted ahead of the value on offer. Reliability concerns that erode trust before it's even established. And in several cases, product decisions that moved away from what made these nameplates successful in the first place. Some of these will recover. Some have harder roads ahead. The market tends to be patient, right up until it isn't. If you found this useful, subscribe and drop a comment below. Which one surprised you the most? We'll see you in the next one.